Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua, and I'm going to be your presenter today. We're going to be together for the next 20 minutes. My computer clock shows 10:57, but my other devices show 11 a.m. promptly. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I just think my clock on my computer here needs to be reset or changed. So it is 11. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're here to talk about entering other income into Church Windows accounting. We're going to be here again till 20 minutes after the hour. If you have questions for me, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I will do my best to keep an eye on those. I will repeat the question for everyone's benefit, and then we will see what we can't do to get that answered. I simply ask that we keep the questions topical on our topic of entering other income into accounting. Again, if you've not already done so, please check out youtube.com/churchwindows for the current list of recordings of the previous webinar events that we have. There's hours and hours of material on our YouTube channel out there, folks. If you haven't already seen it, please visit it. A recording of this particular webinar event will be listed on our website or on our YouTube channel by no later than 5 p.m. Eastern Time today. And our support staff are simply a phone call away if you have other questions and you'd like to actually speak with a real person. We're going to be working with, again, entering other income, which can be found in our Accounting 103, A103 training workbook for Church Windows, pages 11 through 16. If you have one of the workbooks, if you don't, please take a look at the Church Windows store and look at those workbooks. You can purchase those online and download them. They're very helpful, and I'm using that particular section of the A103 workbook as the basis for the webinar event today. Our current version of Church Windows, as we steer our focus over to that, is 19.16.1. Hopefully everybody should be able to see that there in the upper right corner. We just released the SR1 for 1916 last week, I think it was. Everyone should have received an email with the link to that to download and install that. If you didn't, please call us. We're happy to get another email out for you, but hopefully everybody got that. All right. So the first thing to understand about entering other income is most of the church's income certainly will come into the accounting module from donations or giving to the church, of course, but not all of it. There is generally, excuse me, folks, I got a cold here. I picked up a cold and I'm occasionally having a little cough here. While most of the accounting monies that come in are given to the church or income comes in the form of donations to the church, there is a percentage of income that comes into the church from other sources. Rental income, interest on investments and earnings, like weddings, there are other sources of income that churches have and there's a misunderstanding oftentimes that doesn't that have to be recorded through donations? No, we can go right into our accounting module here, and everyone should see the main accounting portal, but right down here at the bottom left, we will see the little calculator with the stack of money behind it called Enter Income, right here. So this is an income transaction that will allow us to record income to Church Windows from sources other than donations. Okay? You can certainly record it through donations if you wish, but it's unnecessary, and I'm going to show a further demonstration of how and why that could be helpful for you for reporting purposes later here. If you don't own the donations module, then you would have no other choice but to come into Enter Income and record the income here. Very similar to our Enter Bills, Pay Bills, Journal Entry screens. The screens pretty much have a very similar look to them in Church Windows in accounting, but this clearly says Enter Income here in the upper left. It starts with entering the date of the income transaction. Most of the time the income comes into an income account, a for account, but one of the things I sort of want to introduce right now is, notice right here, below our asset account, or the asset to which the money is being deposited, it shows income, expense, liability. So yes, while most of the income will probably be credited to an income account, you can also credit income to an expense account, or to a liability account. Okay, a 5 or a 2 in addition to a 4. Okay, so let's say we did receive some rental income into the church, some rental income into the church here this week. We were receiving like rental income from a tenant on one of our properties or something, say, for example. So I'm actually deliberately going to backdate this to November 30th, and you'll see here in a moment why. So if I choose my payment method of, say, check, and I don't have to enter a check number per se, but let's say I have one and I want to record that, okay? One of the things I want to point out here is to the right of that, once I select the payment method, notice I do have an option called Print on Deposit Slip. All right? That's important because you can include it on the church windows deposit slip, and I'm going to show you more about that here in just a little bit. And I would enter a ref check or reference number if I had it. So we're going to say, their check number was 12345. It is being deposited in my Huntington Bank checking. And I can type in my comments here, monthly, rental income check, and then come down to my income expense liability, and I will choose a rental income account, and we'll choose, we'll enter an amount $450. Okay? I can enter line item comments if I wish, and then simply I would click Done, Add to Batch. Very similar to our enter bills, pay bills, in terms of the building the transaction, then clicking Done, Add to Batch. I'm very big on using the Show Running Balance window here. So if I click on Show Running Balance after adding the item to my batch, we show here's my current balance of both my rental income and my Huntington Bank checking, the transaction effect, and what the adjusted balance on both of those accounts is. That just simply, as I like to tell folks on my support calls, is churches and users that use this running balance window and pay attention to what it tells them generally have fewer problems either on reporting or more commonly on the bank reconciliation. So yeah, use that running balance window. It will help. Okay, you can look and see what the account balance looks like before or after you post it. Before you post it, and then you go, oh well, that doesn't look right. You can come back down and revisit the transaction before posting it. Okay. So that would be considered what we would consider, and if I clicked on the plus sign next to it here on the left, notice under my unposted income batch, I see my checking account and my rental income account, and so I'm just looking at the transaction details before posting. Okay. Say I wanted to edit it, as I would with other transactions, I highlight the entry and either double click on it, or I go down to the bottom left and click Edit. So we'll double click on it, it moves it back up to the top, and I go, oh, that actual amount should have been $475. Again, I've caught my mistake before I've actually posted it. Not that it's generally much of a problem when we need to correct things afterwards, but in this case, it's nice if we can catch it before we post it. Okay, so that's what we would consider a single line income transaction. Okay, you can enter, of course, a multi-line income transaction. Again, one of the things that I think is overlooked about transactions in general, whether this is in donations or accounting, is whenever I'm working on something that we label a batch, don't forget you've got this Save Batch button down here, that if I go, oh, well, I've got to get up and I'm called away from my computer, but I'm not done ready to post, if I click on that Save Batch button, it will pop up and say batch was saved successfully. If you don't get the batch was saved successfully dialog box, the batch itself is not saved. But I could close out of my Enter Income window. I could even close all the way out of church windows, come back in, and once I go back into Enter Income, I'm right back where I left off. Okay? Very important in terms of entering donations too. Okay, so a multi-line income transaction, again, would be, we're going to choose cash in this case this time. Under our payment method, notice again, print on deposit slip is there. It's optional, but we're going to leave it checked. And we're going to enter a multi-lined income transaction here. So we're going to choose love offering. No, not love offering. Sorry, excuse me. Other miscellaneous income. And we're going to say we had a well, I'm not sure what I would enter for. I could certainly enter comments here. We're going to do test comments. And then either I hit tab or I click the plus sign on the right end of the line. And then notice there's the empty account space above it. I simply choose, whatever other income or expense account I'm wanting to credit for that. So let's say we're going to choose fundraising income. I think I saw one in there. We had a car wash, say, for example. We're going to type in some comments here. And so again, I could continue adding other income accounts with additional amounts until the total matches here at the bottom. And same thing, I would simply click Done, Add to Batch. It adds more accounts to my running balance window, showing the effect of these transactions on here before I post. Okay? And the final example of this there's two more examples here. An example may be where we maybe post income to an expense. Okay? So if folks go, well, wait, when would there be a time when I need to post income to an expense? A very common one that I deal with on my support calls frequently is, say, when we've purchased something from a vendor and then we've decided to return it, and rather than giving us merchandise credit, they've chosen to send us something back that we can physically deposit at the bank, like in the form of a check. So here, I can say, okay, yeah, we got a check back from a particular vendor for an amount. So what we want to do is we want to reduce that expense account to show that there's more back against their budget. So here, again, I would choose, under my income expense liability. Notice if I continue to scroll down past my 4s, it does allow me to choose my 5 accounts or my expenses. Okay? So let's say we chose to return something that was originally debited to repairs and maintenance. So here I would enter the amount that I was received in the form of a cash or check, and then same thing, I would enter comments, returned merchandise to payee or vendor, the sent refund check, click Done, Add to Batch. Notice here now, under my repairs and maintenance, notice it says here, current balance 0, transaction effect is negative 316. That probably would not be the correct account, because I would show if I had a balance in there of 316, so I would have to choose an expense that actually showed the balance. That might be a situation where I would have to go back up and choose the actual, let's find the one we need to edit here. That's the bottom one here. There it is. And let's choose an expense that we know we have something posted to here. I'm just striking out here left, right, and sideways, folks. Well, anyway, I think you get the point. Yes, it reduces the amount that was originally debited to that expense account and will, in many cases, give that particular expense account more money back on their budget for the year. They've returned it. They don't have the merchandise anymore and haven't spent it, so we want to give them back more of that money back, that $316 back, to spend or use on something else. Okay? Finally, if we go down here and we go a liability account. So when might we have a situation where we do that? We're going to say we're going to choose wedding deposits. So if we received a deposit from somebody who's going to be having their wedding at our church, we don't want to consider, that's not considered income yet. So we're going to say we're going to put that $250 deposit into the liability, and we're going to do, deposit for Joan's wedding here. I just am having trouble typing today. And click Done, Add to Batch. And same thing here when we scroll down and we look at where's our liability? There's our wedding deposits. 0 started with a 0 current balance, transaction effect plus 250, adjusted balance is 250. Okay? So those are the 3 different scenarios where we might need to post income to either an income, an expense, or a liability account. Now, I'm not quite finished yet. Okay? That running balance window is very helpful. The one final thing I want to show you about this here is that if your church says, well, the reason why we record it all through our donations module is because we want to make sure that everything's being included on our deposit slip, okay, that we're printing from church windows. Again, folks, don't forget you've got the deposit slip button here. So if I click post on this, if we go, okay, we've only got the one, if I'm okay with these being separate, I can, but I don't have to. If I want to just take them all to the one, whoops, I need to adjust these. So we're going to have to backdate these here back to October 30th. Done, add to batch. It is, of course, important, which month you want this income to show on your treasurer's report as income too. But in this case, I'm doing this for the purposes of our webinar and the deposit slip. And then once they're all being deposited on 10/30. All right, so now when I click post, and you can say yes to printing the report, but we're not going to do that for the, based on our time for our webinar. But what I want to show is when we go up to reports, transactions, and deposit slip, again, provided the transactions and the all have the same date, they all affect the same asset account, we notice down here at the bottom left where it says include accounting entries and include donation entries. So I can include all of the transactions on both my income transactions and my donation transactions on the same deposit slip, provided I've told it to do that, of course. Huntington Bank checking, and there they are. So I had $380 of cash and coin, and then here are my checks that I had posted into the system, as well as my $250 non-check item. Okay. I did record it as a check in there, but I didn't enter a check number. It still puts it into checks if I wish. But I did have a $135 worth of donations transactions, which were brought into that were also posted on October 30th as well, and those are also brought into our deposit slip. Okay. So, if you do use the deposit slip or want to attach the deposit slip that Church Windows creates for you to one of your actual bank deposit slips, I know many churches where the financial institution will accept that. Especially since we can include the bank account number on our deposit slip in Church Windows, that you can include both your accounting and your donation transactions on the same deposit slip, provided again they share the same date and post to the same asset. Okay, so when we now click print, it now opens up our deposit slip, and here's all of our list of our cash and all of our checks that are separated for the deposit ticket. And notice it does include the bank name and bank account number on that as well, provided we have that entered in our chart of accounts. Okay? This in your income, folks, transaction, folks, is very powerful, very useful, and I think that probably as part of the conclusion for this here, we're at about 18 minutes past the hour. I do want to show also that if we go to something like our reports, like let's say we want to look at our general ledger. If we go, okay, I want to know how much income I've brought into the church, non-donations, non-contributory income. If I go to my general ledger, down here down the left-hand side, I've got all of my transaction types, including income and donations. So if I go, okay, I want to see how much income I've brought into the church, I would simply uncheck all of my transactions, including donations, except income. And then if I choose year-to-date, click print, this is going to be a list of all of my actual income INCM transactions that I've posted into accounting for the year, okay, which is completely separate from donations. So it's, again, there's additional reasons why you may want to choose, how much, somebody comes to you and says, hey, how much income are we receiving into the church other than money that's brought in through donations? The only way to really do this is to enter these transactions through enter income. All right, folks, we got about 30 seconds or a minute left here in our webinar. Let's see if there's any questions that we have over here. I'm definitely done with what the webinar topic here, and if you have questions, please, you can enter those to me. All right, I'm not seeing anything coming in so far. I'm pretty thorough about these types of things, so maybe I answered most of your questions during the actual webinar event. So again, folks, the recording of this will be on our YouTube channel by 5 p.m. Eastern Time today. All right. Well, I'm seeing kind of folks diving out pretty quickly here. So I'm not sure if anybody's typing in questions. I like to give at least 30 seconds or a minute because sometimes those can be lengthy. But it looks like folks are diving out pretty fast. So I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. And if you have questions, please call our support staff, 800-533-5227. And I hope that we'll see you at another Church Windows webinar event. Thank you all so much. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.